This is Jason Dasey on the road in my hometown of Sydney, Australia, in the company of Andrew Greedy Smith, iconic singer of Mental as Anything, the man who penned that big hit from the 1980s, Live It Up, and he also sang it. Great to see you, Greedy.
Nice to be here, Jason.
What an honour it is to be in your company, and I should point out that we went to the same high school together. I was in the class of 1979. You were in the class of 1973, North Sydney Boys High, and it's amazing that our lives took very different paths. But we'll talk about your music career in a minute. But how do you look back on those school days and becoming a musician and all that?
It all seems strangely interrelated to me, particularly when it comes to our first big moment to be on Radio 1, BBC 1. We had a hit record. Everything's fine. Everything's going along fine. And it's the record company said, "You're on there. That means you've made it, son. You're fine." And then the record company rings up the next day. "They want you back. This is unheard of. They're destined for greatness." So I turn up at the BBC, and it turns out it's the sports commentator there ringing me up because he'd read in my bio that I went to school with Alan Border, the captain of the Australian cricket team, and all he wanted to talk about was Alan Border.
So yeah, that's the interesting connection. Alan Border's a national hero here. You're in the class of 73 with him at North Sydney Boys High School, and yet all these years later, you're still playing with Mental as Anything, one of Australia's most popular and most successful groups of all time. First gig was in 1977, and you're still going. Yes, I find that there's nothing better to do. I've still working out how to play the songs. The other players have dropped around me. They've gone on to other careers. Because we started at art school, an art school band, and the two New Zealand brothers in our band, Reg Mombassa and Peter O'Doherty, they're just concentrating on mainly on their artwork. They have a band called Dog Trumpet on the side, but I'm taking the songs of Mental as Anything around and doing the business because people know our songs. So we can go around to Australia and people know our songs, and it's years later, and a lot of the people know our songs because their parents have made them listen to a CD of Mental as Anything while the parents sit in the passenger seat of the car while the youngster is learning to drive. And they say, okay, in Australia have this thing where you have to drive 100 hours with a proper driver. And so I think what happens is that at the end of this time, the parent will appear at our show. We haven't seen them for a few years. The parent is particularly smiling, eyes quite glazed over, very happy, a bit too happy really, saying, "Oh, it's great to see you." And standing behind them is a young person, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, really, 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 looking like they're totally together. And I figured it out. After all this training, they're the designated driver. So I asked them, "Do you know any of these songs?" They say, "Yes, we know all of them. Mum and Dad made me listen to all of them." So that's how it works. Yeah, you've had 43 singles, with the Mentals, as you're known as, Mental as Anything, dating back to, I think, 1979. That was my last year of high school, which is one of the reasons why I tracked you down, because it's kind of looking at that full circle of 40 years. But as you mentioned, there was that art school connection between you and the other musicians. Talk about how the music evolved from that. Well, I think our specific music evolved from that because we were playing to art school students for our immediate audience, and the last thing we wanted to do was to seem pompous or art rockish, because we knew that they would just howl us down. So we had a self-deprecating thing. That's why we wrote about fairly ordinary suburban type of stuff, because we thought, well, they can't pick on us for this. And there's a bit of self-deprecating humour in there. And we're just trying to make a small target, and that's the art school influence. With Greedy Smith, he is the singer from Mental as Anything, talking about his 40-plus year musical career with one of Australia's most popular groups. And we thought, when we talk about the Mentals, we often think about the song that you wrote, Live It Up. That was in 1985. It was released here in Australia. You wrote it. You were the singer on that song. It was a big hit here. And then in 1986, Crocodile Dundee, massively popular Paul Hogan Aussie movie, took it to another level.
Yes, a bit of serendipity. I was asked to write some music for Crocodile Dundee, and I wrote an instrumental song, and I thought that was fun. And then when we first saw the film, we had a bit of our song "Live It Up" in one of the scenes, just a bit of background music. But fortunately for us, our UK promo guy, Richard Evans, had found it. Went to the film and said, "I know that's our boy singing that song. That's a song that none of the radio stations would play in Europe or UK last year." So he repackaged it with a picture of Crocodile Dundee on the cover and sent it round to the radio stations. All the same radio stations that wouldn't play it the year before, they all played it and was a huge hit, and it's been on the radio ever since. So very lucky. Thank you, Paul Hogan.
What did you think, because really you were an accidental musician in some ways, because you were in art school, and then, as I understand, you started to learn the keyboard because they needed a keyboard player. It was a wedding keyboard.
Yeah, that's right. Well, yeah. I joined the band as a harmonica player, but Martin and Reg, the two guitarists, came up to me and said, "Listen, Greedy." I ended up being called Greedy because I ate too much chicken at a lunchtime function, and Reg started calling me that. It was just an accident. They said, "Look, the harmonica's nice, but we don't want it on every song. And we notice when you're not doing that, you're either reading the paper or you're off at the bar. No, you've got to play the keyboard." So we got a copy of the Sydney Morning Herald, selected an used Italian wedding reception organ out of the classifieds. We bought it, and I was playing it that very day. I had no training, but I mastered the one, or at best 2-finger keyboard technique, and that was it. There was a way. So music is something I've really tried to avoid.
Yeah, you've done a great job of that. Here we are, almost in 2020, you're still playing, and you're in your 60s now, and you're still looking fit. You were going to run here to the cafe to meet me, but it was raining. But let's go back to 86, when your song, your voice, is being plastered all over the world, from this accidental musician. I mean, what did you think? Did you pinch yourself and said, "How did I get here?"
Yes, it seemed very, very fortuitous. I went very lucky, but I did come a bit down to earth. I remember in 1996, 95, we were asked to play at the Hong Kong Rugby Sevens, and on British Forces Radio, which was the main English language station in Hong Kong. I remember being on there, being interviewed with the captain of the Brunei football team, and we were introduced by the UK, that very, very English-sounding DJ as those one-hit wonders from Australia, metal as anything. And I thought, hey, wait a minute, because I felt like in Hong Kong, I thought we were more here, but at that stage, Hong Kong was part of the United Kingdom. So the world is really big but really small. In fact, a lot of that sort of stuff has been good for the band's attitude over the years, because you'd have a hit, like we had a hit in Canada that was great, but it was fantastic. But in the UK, we didn't get that, just couldn't get it away. That didn't work. So we toured with Men at Work through UK and through Canada and the US, 2 really long tours in 82 and 83. So we saw a lot of that, the countryside. What we did pick up, which I picked up, is I think there's a Commonwealth sense of humour. I think there's a thing where if you're playing in Kitchener or London, Ontario, and you're saying something, and you drive 60 or 70 miles over into Detroit, and people don't get your humour. They don't get. It's just a different way of looking at things, and so I feel lucky whenever we can get a hit in somewhere that's culturally really different. That is the aim. I will do that. I'll be 112, but I'll do it.
With Greedy Smith, the singer and keyboard player from Mental as Anything, talking about his long musical career, almost by accident, and that early tour that you had with Men at Work, 1982 and 1983, that you touched on there, that must have been incredible, because at that time we saw a lot of Australian artists breaking through the UK and US, whether it's Midnight Oil, whether it's In Excess, whether it's Split Ends, Crowded House, and there you were playing in big audiences. What was that like?
Well, it was quite exciting, a bit nerve-wracking. I think we had to do like a 28-minute set. And sort of be on it, playing to a lot of people who'd never heard of us, didn't know us from Adam. But with the help of a bit of whiskey, because the beer didn't work over there, with the help of a couple of large glasses of tumblers full of whiskey, we did it. We learnt a lot. I think we also learnt about the differences in audiences, but we also learnt that performance is, if you're given the opportunity, you got to pick up the ball and run with it, because that's your opportunity. You've got to, and so few people get opportunities. I've got to say, looking back on a career this long, that it's much harder. It's much easier to make recordings, but it's much harder to find an audience, particularly a live audience. So we were blessed with that.
Yeah, you were part of the prime of music in Australia with the live pub scene, and of course that massive demand for your records. Why keep going now with a very different musical landscape and a lot more challenging, isn't it?
Well, it isn't. That's why I felt duty bound to because with the opportunities were given us in those days, have made it possible for us to remain as a full-time touring outfit. We do over 110 shows a year. We've sort of settled down to that over the past 42 years.
That's a lot. I mean, why do you keep doing it? Because I think you're the only member left of the classic lineup, aren't you?
Yeah. I do it because people. I'm working out how to play the songs and sing the songs.
Yeah, because you've taken over with Martin Plaza, the original singer of many songs. He's not well. He's had kidney cancer for a long time. So you're having to sing his songs, aren't you now?
Yes, I have, because Martin survived kidney cancer, lung cancer, brain cancer, cheek cancer. He's survived all that. He's still in treatment. So I've just taken over his songs. And
how does that feel, doing his songs?
I must say it's challenging, but it's been quite fun. But from standing next to him, singing them for 35 years, it's really been a great opportunity, and it's my way of feeling like he's standing there with me, is to sing those songs.
And you've got some interesting stuff coming up, haven't you? Tell us what you're planning.
Oh, well, we've been prodded into releasing a new best of a collection because you're supposed to put one out every 10 years. This will be about 11 or 12 years since we put out our last one. But the thing is, we'll be putting it out on vinyl, which is making me laugh. The record company insists it must be vinyl, because we started out recording on analog tape to vinyl, and it's all gone full circle now.
It's amazing. I think one of the first, I bought a few albums before, but one of the first Aussie albums I bought was Get Wet in 1979-80. That's 40 years ago, and here you are putting out vinyl again.
Yep, 40 years, and it's back on the vinyl. But mind you, I've just received a pressing to approve, and I couldn't believe how heavy it was, because back in the when we were putting out albums in the 79, 80 through that time, the vinyl was very thin in Australia because of the oil crisis. The price of oil went up, and it's mainly made of oil, so it was very thin. But now the records are really big and heavy, and feel even heavier than the UK imports that everybody used to try and get.
I remember them, yeah.
Really heavy. So I guess that's a good thing. But I guess it's something to do with all this oil that we're not sticking in our cars anymore.
Wow, what a pleasure it's been. Greedy Smith, singer from Mental as Anything, 42 years, you're still going on. Thank you so much. My fellow North Sydney boys, man, great to talk to you.
Thanks, Jason, and thanks for putting us through what they call over here would be, it's called a mini mental test. But they're given to the elderly just to see whether they've gone down the road to dementia. And we're all working on that.
You're still going strong. Thank you, mate.